There's a boy who now lives in a box in my closet. Ironic, isn't it? For the boxes I used to fit myself into for him, and for the closet I lived in for him, I stacked him neatly 6 years into a Tom's shoebox that says 1 for 1, which is bullshit, but it's all I have left. I labeled it, for fuck's sake, whatever you do, do not look in here unless you're made of stone today. But I ignore the label every time because there are days when this curious, chipped self is just curious enough to reach on tiptoes to the back of a shelf for memories that are slowly losing their minds. It's the only time I ever see him now. I like to think that if I ran into him on the street, I'd say, hey, remember when we were so crazy about each other, we honestly thought mountains were just there to remind us that our love made anything possible? Remember our first kiss, standing on our longboards in the drizzle, wearing our youth like an open chest cavity, so ready to throw our whole selves into it. I was so ready to throw my whole self into the boy with the glass heart, so breakable under the hammering of my own. That was when all we held of each other was our hands. I miss your hands, the calluses I used to know like the surface of the moon against my skin, when later they held my heart, my bones, my lungs, every piece of my living. I lived for you. Remember how you grew into me and I grew into you, like my favorite sweater. I never checked if you fit. I wore you every single day and pretended you looked so good on me. Remember our wedding invitations, a whole stack of them, unstamped, unsent. It was going to be a pig roast, homemade preserves, beer served in mason jars. I put the stack of invitations next to a ring that no longer dares me to fit into its full circle. If I wore it on my finger today, my mother would be so happy. Remember how your mother called me the daughter of her heart. You used to say she loved me more than you. It's not true, but she loved me a lot. Remember how happy you were when I chose home as our wedding song. Once upon a time, I could draw 1,000 maps upon your body, and every single one would lead us home to each other, but that home now smells of burning, and I'm still learning how not to smell you in every pot of coffee, every glass of scotch, every time the wind blows against the side of my tent, and it sounds like every time we made love in the forest, every time I make fresh bread, I still think of you. Kneading dough, and I told you I still needed you to love me, even though I couldn't live in the closet anymore. I wish I could still call you. When my mind fools me into thinking it's not strong enough, isn't 6 years long enough to save a space for each other in the part of our smile that remembers how we used to play in the pool? I loved how you said badminton instead of badminton. I loved how you loved tugboats, and how you could never take a shit with the door open, even after all those years. At the end, you held my tears like they were the salt on your wounds and cringed at I love you like it was a toxic song of promises unkept. Every time I've wept, it's for everything between our first kiss and the time I scraped your shattered love song, sobbing off the floor, and said I'm sorry, like I'd never said it before. I said I'd never leave you, and when I finally did, it felt like that time I cut my hair, and my ears missed it so much. Winter was so cold without you. If I could steal just one moment of us back, I'd say I love you, just once more, and have you believe me.